Today we talk about resting before race day and also carb loading for Finke. Hey guys, I'm Andrew Hammer. Welcome to MotoFit TV. We're up to episode number 8. Got a few questions to be able to crack through today. So for future, if you've got any questions, just hashtag MotoFit TV and we can hopefully get your question featured on the show and I can try and answer it as best I can for you. And obviously all the other guys that are watching as well will hopefully be able to find it helpful, find it useful. So a few questions for today. So that was our first one for today, Jeremy.
Luke asked, how many days before race day do you rest for?
Awesome, Luke. So the thing to be able to think about with race days, a lot of people do the opposite of what they actually need to be able to do to optimize their performance on race day. So if you're training consistently 3 or 4 times a week and you've been doing that for a while, your body adapts to that. It gets used to having that level of physical activity. So when we reduce that, and say you try and cut that down to 1 or 2 sessions a week because you've got a race meet coming up, we actually have the opposite effect where you start to tighten up. So when we've got you tightening up, obviously you're not going to be able to perform as well on race day. So the body is made for movement. It's more supple, it moves around a lot better, a lot more flexible, a lot more fluid when we got consistent movement. So when we get the body adapted to 3 or 4 sessions per week, we want to make sure that we're staying consistent with those sessions. So if we have a race day coming up, say on Sunday, then we want to make sure that we're still continue with our normal training, but maybe the last couple of sessions before race day, we'll drop the intensity off a little bit. And the day before, what we'll do is we'll get in active recovery. So you don't want to be having high intensity, max effort type training, strength training right the day before race day because you're going to carry a little bit of fatigue into your racing the next day. So what we want to work on is just movement. So this is where steady state cardio would come in. So what you can do is you can jump on an exercise bike, go for a swim, go for a bit of a walk, go for a bit of a cycle, and just get moving for half hour, an hour, continuing in your routine, continuing to be able to move around, and making sure that we're keeping the body as loose as possible. What most racers do is they call recovery doing nothing. Okay, so recovery is not doing nothing. Recovery is actually helping your body to recover. Now, in terms of how the lymphatic system works, this is what helps to flush out all any inflammation. Or the inflammation is what helps to heal the area, helps to flush out any swelling. So in order to get this lymphatic system working optimally, we need to make sure that there's muscular contraction and movement. And for that to be able to happen, obviously you need to be able to be moving. So that's the purpose of having that the day before. When we cut out training, we stop training and we try and use that as recovery, we have the opposite effect where that lymphatic system doesn't work as well. We start to tighten up, we're not as efficient, we get to race day and we actually don't feel as good as what we could have. So the main thing is the main thing to be able to focus on, Luke, is being able to make sure you're staying consistent with your training, sticking to your routine. The day before we do an active recovery session, just getting moving. And then with maybe a couple of previous sessions, so maybe sessions 3 and 4 for the week, what we will do is we'll reduce that intensity down. So if you normally do your squats with 100 kilos, drop it down and work with 60 or 70 kilos. If you normally do your conditioning and do super high intensity interval training for conditioning, then bump that down and maybe just go through the motions, just tick through, don't push as hard. So you want to be moving still because your body's accustomed to that volume. Don't think that you're going to be sore and tired all of a sudden from this one session when you've been training 4 sessions a week for ages. So work on being able to drop the intensity down, having that active recovery the day before, and then that's going to set you up perfectly for race day from the training side of things. So what's our next question, Jeremy?
Ty asked, how do you carb load before an endurance race like Finke, and is it a good idea?
Awesome, Ty, sweet. So if you haven't watched last week's episode on the training component of Finke, go back to that. Jeremy will link that up for you to be able to go back to. In terms of the eating component, you want to make sure that we're increasing so carbohydrates are our fuel source. Now, there's going to be conflicting information about this, and I know I'm going to get people in the comments saying, no, fats are actually more efficient. You can use fats as well, you can use this, you can use that. The most ideal that I have found is using carbohydrates, okay, and using natural sources of carbohydrates as your fuel source for high intensity activity. Now, within carbs, we have two types, simple carbs and complex carbs. So, complex carbs are high in starch. These are things like sweet potatoes, brown rice, quinoa. We want to maximize the intake of these a few days before Finke to be able to make sure that we've got your carbohydrate stores maxed out as much as we can. Now, the complex carbs are a little bit more of they take a lot longer to break down, but are more long-term sustainable energy. So it's important we get those. And then on race day, you want to be able to make sure that we've got simple carbs in. So making sure that you're taking in natural sugars, fruits. About 45 minutes before you go and ride and race, any breaks or stops that you're having throughout Finke, you want to try and get some sort of fruit in. When we're doing the longer duration events, then you can work on getting things in such as coconut water, which are really, really efficient at being able to help, number one, with hydration, but then also be able to help with energy through natural sugars as well. And obviously you don't need to eat it. So you can work on coconut water, which is going to be a little bit easier to be able to take in, a little bit more efficient, obviously, because you're not going to have time to cut up your fruit and get that in halfway through Finke. So I hope that helps, gives you a little bit of direction. The other component you want to look at as well is the recovery component. So obviously, I know your question, Ty, was based on leading up to. You also want to make sure you're recovering. So that comes into making sure you're taking in protein. On race day, what we recommend for our races is taking in part of a protein shake after you're racing, because this is going to be able to help you to recover. You want to make sure that you have put all the work into your recovery as well. So once you're done with Finke, you can continue, number one, come back, and number two, be able to continue with your training and still pull up well the next day, not have to take the next 3 weeks off because you're so sore from doing the one event. So the recovery component's important as well. So remember that as well, Ty. So that's our third question for today. That's it for today, cool. So we've got 2 questions for today, which is cool. So smash through those 2. So like I said, if you've got any questions that you'd like answered, either post them in the comments below and hashtag MotoFitTV, and I'll make sure I try and get you on the episode so I can answer your questions and try and help out everyone else as well, which is cool. And also hope you enjoyed the episode from last week on Finke. If you've got any questions related to that as well, or any questions that you'd like answered, post them below and I'll try and get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Looking forward to being able to get together our next episode and answering all your questions. We'll speak to you guys then. See ya.